Chat GPT that I was playing with, and it got very creepy for a while, but I think they finally got it figured out. All right, so Bible recap. We are in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, continuing. Same stories, and I agree. Some of you had said, hey, it gets a little confusing because it's jumping back and forth with all of the different miracles that Jesus had done, and they're not really in order because we're going by chapters. But for me, and we talked a little bit about this last week, what really has made me realize in my growth is noting the differences in how each writer portrays the same story. We talked a little bit about that last week. But Matthew, it just keeps coming back to me when he quotes Old Testament about how he is writing to the Jews and trying to convince them, hey, you're missing the boat. This man, Jesus, is the Messiah that we've been looking for, that we've been waiting for. And I just think it just constantly comes to mind. And also Luke and his emphasis on women and their role in ministry. And so where do you think we're going to be today if we're talking about Elizabeth? We're going to be in Luke. Luke is the only one Luke chapter 1, he is the only one that talks about John the Baptist's parents. He's the only one. We don't know anything else about it other than what we're going to read today in chapter 1. And yet John the Baptist was such a large part of preparing the way for when Jesus came on the scene. He was the one, because if you remember context, we just came off of 400 years of silence. God was silent. And so they needed someone coming to talk about that on the way. And so Zechariah, we talked about last week, he's a priest. And we're going to kind of review the verses that we talked about last week because it goes right into, but when we read it this time, let's read it with a lens of Elizabeth. And every time we read some verses, we're going to ask this question: what do we know, or what can we learn about Elizabeth based on the verses that we just read each time? So,
Barren Elizabeth.
Barren Elizabeth, okay. Yes.
Make sure I'm on the right Elizabeth.
Yes, the right Elizabeth. I know, there kind of gets to be some of those. So Elizabeth is the mother of John the Baptist. And actually next week, we're going to talk about John the Baptist because in the Bible recap, I had forgotten, and I don't know, verbally for me, because, I read just with writing, but with the Bible recap, I do audio. And I catch things in the audio. Maybe it's my brain and my learning, but I catch things in the audio. Sometimes I pass over doing it. So I do it both. I mean, I read and I do the audio, but for me, it's kind of both. But the thing that stuck out was that some of John the Baptist's disciples, and John the Baptist had disciples, and they left him and they went to Jesus. And some of those were the 12 apostles. And so we'll talk about how that connection was, and I caught that in the Bible recap this week. All right, so let's open up. Again, we studied Zechariah last week and his role. Zechariah, same person, and his role, but in the temple. And again, it was Herod and the king. We talked about that previously. All right, so let's open up. Somebody read Luke chapter 1, 5 through 10.
In the days of Herod, king of Judea, is it Judea or Judea? Judea.
I think, either way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. In the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zacharias or Zechariah?
It's both.
Okay.
It depends on the translation. One uses one uses the other.
I like to be precise.
Yeah.
Priest named Zacharias of the division of Abijah, and he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. They were both righteous in the sight of God, walking blamelessly in the commandments and requirements of the Lord. But they had no child because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both advanced in years. Now it happened that while he was performing his priestly service before God in the appointed order of his division, according to the custom of the priestly office, he was chosen by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and burn incense. And the whole multitude of the people were in prayer outside at the hour of the incense offering.
Okay, somebody read 11 through 15.
Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. And you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink. He will also be filled with the Holy Spirit, even from his mother's womb."
All right. Okay. What do we know, or what can we learn about Elizabeth from the verses that we just read?
She's old.
She's old. That's right. She is advanced in years. She is old. And yet, in verse 13, it says, "Your petition has been heard." So I know your thoughts on this. If she's old, are they continuing to pray for a child?
That's what I wondered,
Yeah.
if it was like,
Yeah.
not now, Lord.
Or, I don't think so. I think it is a prayer from a long time ago that is just now being
finally answered.
answered. So I'm thinking, hey, there may have been something that you have been praying for years.
Yes.
And in your mind, past. God says no, must not be the case.
Never know.
You never know. You never know.
That shows God's timing.
Yes.
How it's like, well, I want a kid today.
Right.
It's like, no, you can have one when you're 40s.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and this is because the culture is different in this time, because the verses that it talks about, or are we there yet? Are we talking about the blameless part yet? Righteous and blameless, it says that she is, which is very countercultural at this time, and it's intentional, I believe, that he says, what verse is that in? 6. Because 6, it says they were righteous and blameless, meaning at this time, if you didn't have children, if you were barren, it was viewed as you had done something wrong against God, or God was punishing you. Because in this time, how were you taken care of in your old age? By your children. That is our job, is to take care of our parents. And when you have no children, there was nobody to take care of you, nobody to pass on your legacy. And so it was considered very much. So for Luke to mention that they were blameless, righteous, and barren, it was a big deal. That was a big deal. So to us, we kind of blow right over that, but it was a big deal to them, and they have answered, and their prayer has been answered. What else do we know?
She was from the line of Aaron.
Yes, this is a name drop. This is like Aaron is famous. Anybody remember who Aaron is? They remember? He's a priest. He was actually the very first priest God gave to the nation of Israel when he was assigning duties. All the way back to Exodus. All the way back to Exodus chapter 4, they're still saying, hey, this. And so I just think, hey, I mean, who in the world is Abijah? But Elizabeth is of the lineage of Aaron, like the big dog. This is a big deal. He's famous. They are both of the priestly tribe. Both of them are obviously, or he would not have been able to go in the temple and do service in the temple. And his name, Abijah, is, I did not mean to offend him in saying that he wasn't just as important. His name is mentioned, just like Luke, but that they definitely had Aaron as somebody that was of a royal priestly line. So, thought that was pretty cool. Anything else? You guys pretty much have everything that's on my list.
I think it's important to remember too that it doesn't say that they were sinless. You know, they were
Correct.
righteous, blameless.
100%. There is a difference in that. And I think we need to be careful in thinking that the people that we look up to are not. Again, I think of people who say, well, this happens to me all the time. Yeah, Tracy, she even goes to church on Wednesdays. Oh, wow, Wednesdays. And again, it has nothing to do with me feeling like I am more righteous than anybody else. It's that I need it more than anybody else.
I need it
I
more.
go to church. I come here not because I think I'm better than anyone else. I come to church because this is where the sick and this is where the people that are humble enough to go, I can't do it on my own. I don't know how people do it on their own.
If church was open every day, I'd be here every day.
and I think that that's a lie that our enemy tells the world, is that the people that go to church think they're better than everybody else, because I've been told that is not the case. That is not the case.
I
In
think we're
fact,
humble enough to know that we need it more than just.
yes, exactly, and that's what it should be. That's what it should be. Okay, let's read 16 verses 16 through 25.
And he will turn many of the children of Israel to the Lord of their God. And he will go before them, and in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready for the Lord a people prepared. And Zechariah said to the angel, How shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife is advanced in years. And the angel answered him, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I was sent to speak to you and bring you this good news. And behold, you will be silent and unable to speak until the day that these things take place, because you do not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their time. And the people were waiting for Zechariah, and they were wondering at his delay in the temple. And when he came out, he was unable to speak to them. And they realized that he had seen a vision in the temple. And he kept making signs to them and remaining mute. And when his time of service was ended, he went to his home. After these days, his wife Elizabeth conceived, and for 5 months she kept herself hidden, saying, Thus the Lord has done for me in the days when he looked on me, to take away my reproach among people.
All right. Hey, what can we learn about Elizabeth from these verses? Jill?
She's on.
She's old. Thank you, Brittany. Yes, she's old. She's advanced in years. That's correct. What else?
But I like that how he didn't say she was old. He said he was old.
I caught that too. This is a couple that has been married a long time. I am old, but my wife is just advanced. Yeah, that's right. Very good. This could be a lesson. I wonder if we should pass this to the men's class.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's pass it to them. Okay, what
I
else?
always think, like, in the paper, people celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary, how when you were little, you thought that was forever, but I will only be 60. So, yes, let's do this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when you get married when you're young. Okay. Anything else about Elizabeth?
I love how Gabriel just kicks Zechariah's little butt.
I know.
Mute forever.
Yeah.
Words okay.
Yeah. And why did they make him mute? What was the,
Because he didn't believe him.
and we'll talk about when we get to Mary, that Mary asked as well. But the difference in what she was asking versus he was asking because he didn't believe. She was asking, trying to figure out how that was all going to work. Because I'm a virgin, and so how's that going to work? And so she wasn't asking because she didn't believe. It's a heart thing. We don't know hearts. Only God knows hearts. So sometimes it's kind of hard to, that's why we don't judge, because we don't know hearts. Okay?
I guess I'm thinking about her being hidden for 5 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why did she hide for 5 months?
Was she ashamed? Or
So
just
wasn't that the custom then? They didn't go out in public if they were pregnant?
Could have been. There's a lot of commentary on this. Couple things, meaning she was so grateful and so humble that I think it shows her heart. Because if she would have went out, because there were people that would have, through the years, said, well, if only you would do this, or if only you would do that, there must be something wrong with you. So for her, I think she wasn't wanting to be spiteful. I think she was trying to not be, look at me, prideful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, mine in the notes says it allowed her time to worship God.
Yes. Yes.
Or do you think that she thought people wouldn't believe too? Like, I mean, he didn't
Could
believe.
be. Yeah.
Be like, you're not pregnant.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could be. There's lots of commentary on why they believe that she probably, but most of the commentary says they believed it was to worship and just to be grateful and just enjoy it as it was, instead of
It is what it is.
and there was a cultural part to that too, but most of the commentary does talk about.
She was at rest. Her husband couldn't talk.
Yeah, exactly. I get a break. That's funny.
Probably the same reason I didn't believe that Mary was virgin.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we're not necessarily going to read the next verses starting in, no, we are going to read this. 26, starting in verse 26. No, we're not. In verse 26 through 35, I'm just going to kind of do an overview. This is when, because we're going to go back and study this. This is when the angel Gabriel comes to Mary and says to her, hey, you know what? You're getting ready to be a mom. And she's like, I'm not sure how that's going to happen. And the reason that this is such a big deal, I mean, obviously it's a big deal, but is because the culture at that time, when you are engaged, you're basically married. The ceremony just hasn't happened yet. And so for her, she was, this is the status of being an unmarried woman at this time, a young woman would have been, she could have definitely been stoned. She could have been ostracized. She could have been kicked out. All the things, multitude of things. But we're going to read starting in 36, because 36, then even with Mary, the angel tells Mary, and behold, even your relative Elizabeth has also conceived a son in her old age. And she who is called barren is now in her 6th month. So how long was she in seclusion? 5. So now she's in her 6th, for nothing will be impossible with God. And Mary said, behold, the bondslave of the Lord, may it be done to me according to your word. And the angel departed. So let's read. Well, first of all, what do you know about Elizabeth from those verses?
She was related to Mary.
She is related to Mary. It doesn't. We think it's a cousin, but they're related, which means John the Baptist and Jesus would have been somehow related as well within the same family. So I think that's important. Okay, let's read 39 through 45.
In those days, Mary arose and went with haste into the hill country to a town in Judah. And she entered the house of Zachariah and greeted Elizabeth. And when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. And she exclaimed with a loud cry, blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why is this granted to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For behold, when the sound of your greeting came to my ears, the baby in my womb leapt for joy. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her from the Lord.
Okay, and then let's jump to, somebody read 56 through 66. Let's finish that.
Mary stayed with Elizabeth about 3 months and then went back to her own home. When it was time for Elizabeth's baby to be born, she gave birth to a son. And when her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had been very merciful to her, everyone rejoiced with her. When the baby was 8 days old, they all came for the circumcision ceremony. They wanted to name him Zachariah after his father, but Elizabeth said, no, his name is John. What? They explained, there is no one in our family, no one in all your family by that name. So they used gestures to ask the baby's father what he wanted to name him. He mentioned for a writing tablet, and to everyone's surprise, he wrote, his name is John. Instantly, Zachariah could speak again, and he began praising God. Awe fell upon the whole neighborhood, and the news of what had happened spread throughout Judea hills. Everyone who heard about it reflected on these events and asked, what will this child turn out to be? For the hand of the Lord was surely upon him in a special way.
We'll talk about that next week, because it was. So what can we learn about Elizabeth from these verses? Going all the way back to 39, verse 39.
She was obedient to what God had told her to do.
Yep. She was grateful. She was filled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, back then, people didn't have the Holy Spirit living in them.
Right.
So I
Yes.
think that was probably so that she would have this understanding that she wouldn't have had even if.
And almost confirmation that, hey,
Yeah,
this was, yes.
Yeah.
Rick thinks that's when Elizabeth was saved, was when the baby left in her.
Well, so it was different then.
Yeah.
They were righteous and blameless because they kept all the commandments and they kept all the things. They were already obedient.
Saved, as you think.
Right. Saved is different now than it was then because they had this was Old Testament and sacrificing and all of the things that they did. But here's the part that I love. Who was the first person to recognize Jesus as God?
John.
The fetus, actually, if it was a world, it's the baby inside Elizabeth leapt, meaning the first person to actually recognize Jesus
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a baby that hadn't even been born yet. And so I just love that is not an accident that God put that in here. That the importance of that child in Elizabeth.
Where is that statement?
And the other thing, it is in verse. He leapt 41. And when Elizabeth heard the Mary's greeting, the baby leaped in her womb. And she cried out and said, "Blessed are you in the fruit of your womb." How it has happened to me. John the Baptist. So the other thing I've never noticed, which maybe we should wait for this to be a Mary, is that the angel. Actually, let's talk about this. Verses 39 and 40. How soon from when the angel left Mary to tell her what's getting ready to happen that Mary left to go see Elizabeth?
In a hurry.
In a hurry, instantly. Yeah, immediately.
So, was she pregnant?
That was what I was going to say. Yeah. So the trip to go, if we look at verse, this is a map that we used last week, but if we look at in verse 26, it says that Gabriel came to Mary in Galilee in Nazareth. So this is where Mary was. She was in Nazareth. And the temple would have been at Jerusalem. So it says the hill country, so I'm not sure if Elizabeth and Zacharias lived in, but they would have had to have lived in the hill country. See how this is very mountainous through here? So they believe it took them because there are supposed places now where you can go see their home. You can see Elizabeth and Zacharias' home where they believe they lived today, which is about 80 to 100 miles. So it would have taken Mary about 4 or 5 days to get from here to wherever they lived in this area. And a lot of people say, well, she didn't go by herself. There would have been people that went with her. But I think, how cool is it? There's a couple reasons why do you think Mary went to Elizabeth that quickly? What are your thoughts? If you were Mary and you were told at the age of 14 or somewhere around there that you're getting ready to have a baby and you're not married yet.
That's her best friend. She won't tell her.
And who's the first person you go to?
You want to go to an elder, someone who has more wisdom to help you.
Yes. And I think how cool is that if someone feels like and there's a couple things here. They feel like Mary could have gone to help Elizabeth. She's in her 6th month. She is advanced in years.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to need some help. And I think it's also she's being told something that's really going to, can you imagine trying to tell your dad, hello, just to let you know, Dad, this is not really what you think it is. I'm still a good kid. And he's like, yeah, no, not in this culture. In this culture, women were not valued And so you were ruined at this time if this kind of thing happened. We don't understand the type of thing Mary went through at this time.
Well, the angel told her that her relative Elizabeth
Yes.
was also a child, so that's probably why she immediately.
Yeah, she immediately left. She had someone to go to that's going to be
Supernaturally almost.
and understand what she was going through. Yeah. And I just think how do we rejoice with those? Do we grieve? It's exactly what Scott was talking about in Romans this morning, when it talks about, are we happy for those in our family that have things to rejoice at? Do we get jealous of things when somebody's really going through something? And I love the verse at the end that is in verse 58 that says, when the baby was born, all of her friends rejoiced with her. Those were true friends.
Yeah.
True friends. And there probably was some in there that didn't have children either,
Right.
that was going through the same thing. I just think for us, what can we learn from what a true friend that Elizabeth was, that she would come, that Mary would come to her and seek out either, and to help her, and also just to know that they had those things in common.
It's interesting that when she told them the baby's name was John, that, no, you can't do that.
Yes.
Zacharias, what do you?
Yeah, what do you
want to
say?
name this baby? And he said John, and
Your opinion.
yeah, but women had no rights.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't. It goes back to showing how big of a deal it was for Mary. And I also thought it was interesting. How long did Mary stay? It says it in verse 56.
3 months.
So she was 6 months when she found out she was pregnant.
Yeah.
3 months. She stayed just till she was past that. Yeah, but she didn't stay for the birth.
Do you know how big I was when I was 6 months pregnant? How did you not notice?
Oh, well, no, they noticed. They knew.
Okay.
They knew there. She only stayed. So Mary stayed with her until she was 9 months. In other words, probably right before the baby was born, and then she went back. Probably. So part of the commentators believe that part of the reason Mary went was to help Elizabeth as well. Get through that time where in case the baby came early, but then when she was termed, she was good to go. So, yeah, that's awesome. You know, I think about how this could apply with us being friends. I think we can all be good friends, but what does it look like? I think one of the things we have to be careful about, and I just know someone that's going through another church that's kind of going through a situation where they have people shaming them on social media. And I just think that is something that I think social media can be used where you think I'm just kind of helping them see where they're wrong, versus that's not a true friend. If you're shaming people on social media, in the whole world, we don't do that. And what is a true friend like Elizabeth that can come, that's going to be a confidant for you, that's going to be able to lift you up when you're needing that, or kind of support you when you need it. And I just think that Elizabeth probably shows those qualities, and we don't talk about her enough. And so I think that's a good idea. Any other last thoughts from the group? All right. Well, I hope you have a great week. And we're going to talk about John the Baptist next week.
Yay.